let's talk about prescription drugs. Anybody know the word formulary? Know the term formulary? Formulary is all prescription drug plans have a formulary. Doesn't matter if you're getting it bundled with an Advantage plan or you got a standalone Part D prescription drug plan. They all have a formulary. And the way to think about it is like a menu at a restaurant. So if you were to go to this restaurant over here, they have their menu. They've got chicken and lobster and steak on there. And then you go to this restaurant over here and they've got hamburgers and pizza and whatever. And they've got their own stuff. They got their own prices. Same thing with the prescription drug plans. They've got their own menu. So the formulary is what's on the menu. And they come in tiers. They're typically 5 tiers. The first 2 tiers are generic tiers, preferred generics and non-preferred generic. These are the ones where you go to the doctor you go to the pharmacy and it's a 0 premium or 0 copay or maybe a $5 copay. It's very little. Then you've got brand name drugs, tier 3 and 4, the brand name drugs. Preferred brand name drugs, it gets more expensive. You show up to the pharmacy and it's about a $47 copay. Non-preferred brand name drugs are even more expensive, might be a $100 copay. Those are getting to be pretty expensive drugs then. And then you get into the ultra expensive specialty drugs and they just quit doing fixed copays. And they say, you're going to pay a percentage of the cost of the drug. And in this case, we're going to say it's 25%. Well, they also all work the same way as far as prescription drug Part D phases. They begin in 2024. This is what it looks like, okay? Phase 1, January 1st, or whenever you enroll in the plan, is what they call the deductible phase. Now, you'll know that you're in the deductible phase because you're paying 100% of the cost of your drugs until you reach the deductible. Most common deductible on Part D plans is $545. It's because that's the most that the government will allow them to charge. But there are Part D plans that have lower deductibles than $545. There are some that may have, I've seen them with a $150 deductible. I've seen them with $0 deductible. The trade-off there, though, is that they tend to have higher premiums. So your 50-cent plan is not going to have a $0 deductible on these tier 3, 4, and 5 drugs. If you're paying a $100 premium on it, you might get one that has a $0 deductible. So there's trade-offs here with this. And it's a basic rule of insurance is that if they're giving you something with one hand, they're taking away something with the other hand, right? Now, once you reach your deductible, you're going to tip over into the second phase, and that's the initial coverage phase. That's where all of this stuff applies. All these copays apply. And most people spend most of their time in this second phase. They don't ever get beyond that. The third phase, when you reach a $5,030 in total drug costs, you're having a pretty bad year. $5,030, that's not just what you're paying, but that's what you're paying plus what the insurance company is paying. $5,030 is the threshold that tips you over into the third phase. And that's what we call the coverage gap. Anyone ever heard the term donut hole? And now, instead of paying these copays, you're going to pay 25% of the cost of your drug while you're in the donut hole. Not only that one drug, that the problem med that got you into the donut hole, but it's going to bring all of your meds with it. And you're going to pay 25% of the cost of all of your meds while you're in the donut hole. Now, I'll give you a scenario of how that might happen. Let's say that you've got one of these preferred brand name drugs, and the retail cost on that drug is $1,000 every 30 days. So for the first time that you get the prescription filled, you're going to pay your $545 deductible, and the insurance is going to pick up the difference. So then in the subsequent months, about midway through the summer, you hit $5,030 and you tip over into the donut hole. Well, this whole time, you've been paying a $47 copay. But when you tip over into the donut hole, you show up at the pharmacy and they said, it'll be $250 today. And you're like, what happened? You're now in the donut hole. And you're going to remain in the donut hole until your total drug costs for that year reach $8,000. That's called the catastrophic threshold. At that point, you're going to tip over into the fourth phase, the catastrophic phase. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? It's really not, because when you're in the catastrophic phase, your insurance company is going to pick up everything beyond that $8,000. Now that you understand how that works, in 2024, we're going to mix it up a little bit because all this is about to change. In Inflation Reduction Act, notice it's written in red. If the government tells you that it's doing something, it's probably not. So someone in Washington, D.C. said, $8,000 is too much for you to be paying for your prescription drugs. We think that those big bad insurance companies ought to have to pay for everything above $2,000. Because no longer $8,000 is $2,000. And they didn't ask the insurance companies what they thought about that. They just said, that's how it's going to be. So the insurance company is like, well, how are we going to do that? Well, something's got to give, right? They give you something with one hand, they're going to take away something with the other hand. So what do you think some of those things might be? Well, it could be higher premiums. 50-cent premium goes away. It could be higher deductibles. In fact, we already know, I can tell you this, $545 will not be this deductible next year. It'll be $590. We already know that. It could be where your drugs land within this formulary. It could be what your copays are in the formulary. In fact, I already know that some of these fixed copays on tier 3 and tier 4 are going away. And they're just going to say, you're going to pay 25% of the cost of the drug when you've got one of these brand name drugs. And are your drugs going to be on the menu? So remember, we were talking about prior authorizations over there with the Advantage plans. You know, they got prior authorizations for drug plans too. Your doctor wants to prescribe a drug to you. And the insurance company says, whoa. Before we fill the prescription for that expensive drug, we would like to have a say in that. We're paying for it. There's another variation of this called step therapy. Anybody heard of step therapy? This is where there's maybe multiple meds that might be designated for whatever your malady is. And your doctor says, I would like to prescribe drug C. And the insurance company says, that's great, but we would like you to try drug A first. And if that doesn't work, then you can try drug B. And if that doesn't work, then we'll let you prescribe drug C. Guess who's in control there? The insurance company. Yeah. Part D exclusions. So what things are not included in Part D drug plans? There's certain categories of drugs that are not included. Barbiturates, one thing, because of the potential for abuse. Benzodiazepines, those are like the anxiety drugs. Cosmetic drugs, so for skin wrinkles and hair loss, I'm out of luck. Not included there. Fertility drugs, like a lot of 65-year-olds need this. Sexual dysfunction drugs, even if it's prescribed, it's not covered. Weight loss and weight gain drugs, except for a diagnosed medical condition, and vitamins and minerals, even if they're prescribed. A lot of times I'll have people that they're giving me their drug list and they'll say, well, I've got vitamin D or iron that's been prescribed by my doctor, and that's not going to be covered. And then, of course, non-FDA approved drugs, they're not going to pay for anything that's experimental or iffy. It's got to be something that's approved. Now, there are exceptions for medically approved purposes. With Medicare, there's a but for almost everything, by the way. Smoking cessation drugs, those get paid for. Drugs to counteract severe weight loss in AIDS patients. Drugs to treat skin conditions. Now, that's different from cosmetic drugs. So, what's the skin condition? Eczema, that would be covered. Cough medicines, things that have to do with conditions like asthma. And then drugs, this is the one everybody's interested in today. Drugs that are prescribed for a different approved use. And that brings up like Ozempic and Wegovy. So Ozempic gets paid for. Why does Ozempic get paid for? Wegovy does not, because Ozempic is prescribed off-label for blood sugar reduction for prediabetes patients. And so there's a medical condition that's associated with that. Wegovy, which is the very same ingredient, it's a semaglutide, is not paid for because it's labeled for weight loss. That might be changing because I was just reading this morning that they may have a medical application for Wegovy for some cardiac conditions. But as of right now, Wegovy is not paid for in there. Same stuff, just one is paid for one reason and one is not paid for that reason. I'll tell you a quick story about a lady last November. She contacted me. She was moving to Texas. She had to undergo cancer treatments. She's turning 65. And I told her, you know what? No one would ever want you to get cancer. But in the Lord's mercy, this is happening on your 65th birthday because you were about to get the best insurance you ever had. Well, we put her on her Plan G. And I just talked to her today, by the way. That's interesting enough. Put her on a Plan G. And she called me back some months later because she wanted to get onto a dental plan. And she said, Rodney, everything that you told me was true.